guys, real quick, the first part of this video is actually not going to be on YouTube. It's going to instead be on Hardbastard's website because it includes both clips from Comedy Central's show, Moshe Kasher's Problematic, and also because of the general topic matter, in addition to the fact that he recently got a totally erroneous strike on his channel, so we just don't want him to get another one. But yeah, link will be in the description.
So this cancer is over with. Now we're going to get into Reza Aslan. Now, where do you even begin with this motherfucker? These links will be in the description. Reza Aslan is a person who, at first I thought he might have just been like a liberal snowflake, but now I really do think that he has a very pro-Islamic agenda. There's this article in the Front Page magazine. Really quickly, I'll just go over this, and then since your field is academics, you have very interesting observations about the qualifications that he claims to have, and so we'll get into that. Let me just go over this very quickly. Reza Aslan has built a career complaining about Islamophobia. Throw a dart at a map of colleges, and the odds were good that Aslan would be speaking at one of them about the rising threat of Islamophobia. Earlier this year, Aslan, an Iranian Muslim, announced that he was going to change people's minds about Islam and make them more tolerant through pop culture, through film and television. Stories have the power to break through the walls that separate us into different ethnicities. Aslan rhapsodized different cultures, different nationalities, different races, different religions. CNN gave Aslan a forum. Nearly every episode of The Believer that aired has made some religion that isn't Islam look freaky, unpleasant, and threatening. Instead of breaking through the walls, it has surveyed different non-Islamic religions only to sneer at them as strange and weird. Instead of Islamophobia, it offers non-Islamophobia. The Believer kicked off with an episode featuring a sect of cannibals, whom the show associated with Hinduism. In its last episode, spread fear over the threat posed by Orthodox Jews. CNN Believer clips offer Reza Aslan explaining why he's a Muslim sandwiched between a doomsday cult leader who calls himself Jesus, voodoo, Scientology, and a Mexican death cult. Now, you have to keep in mind, at least with this, is when you watch Believer, there are some shows in which he becomes an apologist for the religion, like with Scientology. He was a total fucking apologist, for Scientology. For some reason, in addition to Islam, he has a
he has friends that are Scientologists.
Yeah, I think that's probably why he does it, yeah. Not even Al Jazeera would have been this blatant about its Islamic agenda. Reza Aslan, CNN, and Believer have already offered a whole range of religious groups. Hindus angrily denounced the misrepresentation of their religion, but the left has much less interest in Hinduphobia than it does in Islamophobia. Hindu protests outside CNN offices in 5 cities garnered almost no coverage from the same media that covers every single Islamic protest against Islamophobia. The media doesn't believe that all forms of religious bigotry are created equal. Orthodox Jews condemned Aslan for his fear-mongering aimed at Judaism, but the left is uninterested in criticizing anti-Semitism from Islamists, especially those on its payroll.
Although, again, of course, you have to count every every fake
yes, of course.
Act.
But no, those they're going to count if they come from the right, of course. But if they come from Muslims, they're not going to count them. No, those don't count. Muslims didn't do nothing. The Believer has tried to smear Christians, Hindus, and Jews. It has yet to profile Muslims. Despite Aslan's interest in teaching Americans not to be Islamophobes, he seems to prefer pushing Christophobia, Judophobia, and Hinduphobia, but bigots can't be expected to fight bigotry. The Believer treats non-Islamic religions as a freak show. The gimmick attracts viewers. See Reza Aslan eat brains, talk to a doomsday cult leader, or act afraid of Jews in fedoras. Look at all those freaks. But don't expect to see Shiite Muslims cutting their children in the street for Ashura on The Believer. Beneath the hipster approach to religion is malice. Hindus are associated with cannibalism. Orthodox Jews in Israel are swapped in for Islamists. Reza Aslan pretends that Israeli cities are no-go zones, as he insists if we get out of the car in these neighborhoods, we will be immediately attacked. This is fucking outrageous. Yeah. Of course, no one attacks him, but Reza Aslan gets to pretend to be afraid of the Jews. In a CNN article, Aslan warned that Orthodox Jews are taking on greater political power until one day you wake up and find this group has more or less taken over the state. Oy vey, if a right-winger said that shit, they would say that you were asking the Jewish question. If someone were to say such a thing about Muslims, Aslan would be leading a lecture tour to denounce Islamophobia. Last year, Aslan was peddling Fear Inc., the industrializing of Islamophobia. Now Reza is coincidentally spreading fear of a religion that Muslims view as their leading enemy. And CNN is serving as Fear Inc. and industrializing Aslan's non-Islamophobia. In his CNN hit piece, Aslan cunningly transposes certain concerns about the Islamic birth rates, theocracy, no-go zones, and religious police to Jews. It is inconceivable that CNN would run a documentary worrying about Islamic birth rates leading to theocracy in Europe or America. But all those worries about Islamophobia don't apply to Islamist fear-mongering about other religions. Israel, Reza Aslan warns, is on the verge of turning into a Jewish version of Iran. As critical as I am of Israel and the government, that is some preposterous bullshit. Good Lord. That's certainly a convenient message to peddle if you're an Islamic opponent of Israel. In the past, Aslan has been utterly unsubtle in his hatred of the Jewish state. Highlights including comparing Israelis to Nazis, which is and insisting that Iran wants nukes because it feels threatened by Israel. No. But as critics know, Reza Aslan has two faces. One is a ranting bigot, the other feigns spirituality. The real Aslan is a bigot. The fake Aslan mouths inanities about the universality of religions, even as he attacks every religion that isn't Islam. You can find the real Aslan on social media and the fake Aslan on CNN. The Believer is the perfect platform for Reza Aslan. Its smirking, subtle, spiritually curious, and Aslan inanities conveys the image of a hipster looking for religious meaning everywhere. It's no doubt how the show was sold to CNN, and CNN execs saw Aslan's approach of showcasing religious freakiness while disguising it with nostrums about the universality of the search for meaning as a safe bet. But Aslan isn't spiritually curious, he's spiritually hostile. He learned to disguise that hostility by sounding like a liberal. On CNN, his attacks on various religions are interspersed with disclaimers. But the disclaimers, like the inanities, are meant to get lost in the overall impression that Hindus eat brains and Jews are Islamic terrorists. See, I've covered several episodes of his show, and outside of the Scientology one, I would agree with this. And this is something that I was not even really looking at it like this, but now that it is put in this way, I would agree with this. And that's fucking insidious. And Jews are Islamic terrorists who want to take over everything. That is what viewers will remember. Aslan postures as a scholar, but he's callously ignorant of other religions, as he isn't actually interested in learning about them except to undermine him. You can read the rest of the article. I think the overall point has been made. But there are some things about Reza, because he makes claims about himself. And I think you're the perfect person to talk about this because you have experience in, you call it academe, correct? Yeah. So I guess break it down as far as like what things about Reza kind of like maybe don't like square up with what you know about academe and how it works and shit.
Okay, so first of all, when you Google Reza Aslan, so a curriculum vitae, usually called a CV, is essentially a scientist or a professor or any type of academic's version of a resume. This would be what you find when you go to look up Reza Aslan's CV. So he's been called out before for calling himself a religious scholar, but he actually has a doctoral degree, a PhD in sociology. So let's see. Basically, this whole article... it goes through more of his experience as an entertainer or working in media. So this whole section talks about that. So his first books. So one thing that does pop out to me too is that I see throughout this entire thing, reference of peer-reviewed scholarly academic work. First book, international bestseller, No God But God, The Origins, Evolution, and the Future of Islam. Translated into 17 languages, and was named one of the 100 most important books of the last decade by Blackwell Publishers, author of Beyond Fundamentalism, Confronting Religious Extremism in a Globalized Age, originally titled How to Win a Cosmic War, as well as editor of 2 volumes Tablet and Pen, Literary Landscapes from the Modern Middle East and Muslims and Jews in America, Commonalities, Contentions, and Complexities. None of these... The biggest thing about writing a book is anyone can write a book. And in fact, most people with PhDs will publish at least one book, because a PhD is usually, 1,000 pages long. So if you get rid of some of the bullshit that's involved, you can just go to a publisher, pay them money, or sometimes if it's good enough work, you can get a deal, and you will get at least one book published. Pretty much everyone with a PhD has at least one book. It's really not a big deal. In fact, like I said, it's par for the course. Having published books, and these are like sort of pop religious books, and it does start with his media credits, not his, you have to scroll down a little bit to get into his actual academic credit.
Right.
So he talks about his books. This is nothing to write home about, though, about having published books. I mean, it's impressive, 17 languages, that's cool. Whoever Blackwell Publishers put you, that's nice. It doesn't mean anything about your scholarly credentials.
Right, like as an author, that's nice. But as an academic, that's a totally different thing.
Yes. So Aslan's degrees include a Bachelor's of Arts in Religious Studies from Santa Clara University, major focus New Testament, minor Greek, a Master's of Theological Studies from Harvard, major focus History of Religion. So this would be actually what he talks about when he calls himself a scholar of religions. It's his Master's. Now, Master's from Harvard is nothing to sneeze at, and that does appear what he studied. But then he has this PhD in Sociology of Religions from the University of California. If you look this up in terms of what his degree actually says, it just says PhD in Sociology. He has added this bit. But the way that PhD scholarship works is that you have to choose a major area of study. So it's very possible that he went to his advisor and said, in sociology, and said, I want to study world religions as my major area of study. But you're still in the sociology department. The people who are going to be most knowledgeable and have the greatest access to information, the greatest access to research, and generally be the best advisors that you're going to get if you want to study world religions and the history of world religions are not going to be in the sociology department. They're going to be in the theology department. Let's see. And then he also that's from University of California, Santa Barbara, and a Master's of Fine Arts from the University of Iowa, where he was named the Truman Capote Fellow in Fiction, which is actually what he does as an academic. He teaches creative writing. He does not teach anything related to sociology or theology. He teaches creative writing.
Interesting.
That's a kind of a warning sign, because he is a tenured professor.
Right.
But and it's possible that he does teach some classes, but at least as far as I've been able to find, he only teaches classes related to this Masters of Fine Arts.
Right.
And that brings up some major warning flags for me, because normally, typically speaking, when you're talking about an academic, the courses that you teach are the courses that are most directly related to your major field of research and study.
Right.
So the classes that I teach are going to be, everyone has to teach bullshit classes. So if you have to teach creative writing, fine. Yeah, creative writing down here. But then the other classes I teach are all related to media, because that's my research interest. And it's not just me, because I'm still a student.
Right.
But people who obviously are also tenured professors, if you're a tenured professor and you study business communication, organizational communication, they're not going to have you set up to be teaching classes on interpersonal, on relationships, on romantic relationships. That would be stupid. It's not your field of research. So if you're saying that what you're really a expert in is religious studies and you teach creative writing, I find that a little disconcerting.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yes, he is an adjunct senior fellow at Council on Foreign Relations, a member of Los Angeles Institute for the Humanities and the Pacific Council on International Policy, serves on the board of directors of the Plowshares Fund, which gives grants for peace and security issues, Narrative 4, which connects people through the exchange of stories, PEN USA, which champions the rights of writers under siege around the world, the Los Angeles Review of Books, and the Levantine Cultural Center, which builds bridges between Americans and the Arab-Muslim world through the arts. And I do see a pervasive focus here on writing and artistry, not on critical theological research. Even just in these organizations, which I admittedly I'm not familiar with, but just from his own description of them.
Right.
So yes, Aslan is a tenured professor of creative writing at the University of California, Riverside, and serves on the board of trustees for the Chicago Theological Seminary and the Yale, there's at least something, and the Yale Humanist Community, which supports atheists, agnostics, and humanists, at home and abroad, a member of the American Academy of Religions, the Society of Biblical Literature. By the way, becoming a member of an academic community like this, you kind of just usually have to pay a fee.
Right, I gotcha.
And the International Quranic Studies Association. Aslan's previous academic positions include the Wallerstein Distinguished Professor of Religion, Community and Conflict at Drew University in New Jersey, and visiting assistant professor of religion at the University of Iowa. So I'm not really sure, why he had these religious positions and now he's teaching creative writing. That's a little bit weird to me, also. I would just doubt some of this, and I think the next thing to do is to show, like, this is... So if this is what Reza presents on his personal website as his curriculum vitae, to put it... So I brought up Jordan Peterson as a prolific scholar, and someone most people know.
Yeah.
So this is ResearchGate. Anytime that you are interested in a particular academic or scholar, they will have their research on ResearchGate. We all use this. We use this to work with each other, to connect our work. This website's actually... This is... it's not the only one, but this is academic LinkedIn, sort of.
Right, I got you.
Okay. So you get on here... This is not also a very traditional CV. A traditional CV would be more just listing, and it would be like a printed out paper, like a resume.
Right.
But you can see if you go down, featured research, and then view all, you can. It has 101 articles. You can see the article name, the full text, the people who worked on it. If this would mean if someone else had cited the research, and how many times it's been read. And you can go down and you see some of these are going to have a couple of citations, and these are only the reported ones. Google Scholar also keeps track of other people who work with you. But this is what I expect from an active scholar, a person who, if someone wants to call themselves an expert in a field of academe, you're going to be seeing pages and pages and pages of published academic research. Now, it might be a false equivalence to compare someone who I believe is an evolutionary psychologist to a religious scholar. So I did not know this guy, but you did.
Yeah.
So this is also an atypical CV. But it's because it's on his website, and that's okay. So typically, we do start out this way. You name your credentials, where you received it, teaching experience, undergraduate courses taught, and then also, but the most important thing here is that you get down your publications, books in preparation, because we usually do say if we have work that's forthcoming, articles and essays. This is going to tell you exactly the name of the work in Brian and Jesus, which is the editor is Joan Taylor, published by London Bloomsbury. This is a new article, expected publication. Maybe he needs to update this. But the point is, this is ML, I think this is MLA citation. I'm not used to reading.
No, I got you.
But this is what you expect to see from a prolific scholar in a field. Just a lot of shit. So this is him as an editor, edited texts, and then recent academic conference papers. So conference papers aren't published, but we go to the conventions where we but all of this stuff has to be reviewed. You don't just get to just publish this shit. Someone has to say this has passed a level of scholarly quality. And in more heavy scientific fields, we have to do double-blind research, which means I can't have to avoid biases in research publication. And I do not know how that works in terms of theological research. But I would be surprised if there wasn't something of the same sort of level. To see that this looks so similar to me to what I see in social science publications, even if the citation's a little different, but I see like Journal of Biblical Textual Criticism. The Journal of Early Christian Studies. These are academic journals. If it's a journal, it probably, Bible reviews, probably all of these have some kind of review board that says whether or not this is held up to any quality. Publishing a book is held up to no quality but your own.
That's the biggest, that's a huge difference between a person. Any person can publish a book, but so and if you want to look at the difference, the reason, because I was, when I came out of the cult, I was very much into apologetics, and one of like the best scholars was Bart Ehrman. And so, if you want to compare an actual religious scholar to a fraud, compare Bart Ehrman and the shit that he says, and compare that to Reza Aslan. I think that this is like Peterson's a good example, just to like explain like how this works, and there should be at least something other than your books that can be published, because I think you were saying you can pay somebody to publish a book.
Right, and he's also a media figure first.
Right.
So they're going to want to publish anything he writes because he's got renown. He's not going to be held to any standards in terms of actually being an accurate work of theological criticism or theological analysis. And one of them's his PhD, I guarantee it.
Now, Ehrman is a Christian scholar. He's not a Christian. He just covers Christianity. He's actually like, if you're like an atheist, but you're also interested still in the Bible, his shit is really good because there's still a lot of like fascinating shit about like the New Testament and like, what would you call it? Like how the New Testament was formulated and all that shit. But even if he was, let's say, if he was a real scholar that maybe handled Quranic studies, if you were to say some shit to a real scholar that, there is no death for apostates in the Quran, they would laugh at you because that's like preposterous. So yeah, all right. Well, that's like very good to explain that. I appreciate that very much. All right, so now we're going to get into one of the statements that Reza made in the Problematic show that was complete fucking bullshit when he acted or claimed that more right-wing extremists killed Americans than Islamic extremists. Now, this is a lie that was also promoted by Sharia's cool man, Sally Cohn, who has suggested that you could be gay under Sharia and that would be completely fine. Of course, when academics like Gad Saad suggested that she maybe go to Saudi Arabia and hold hands with her girlfriend, and of course there was no response to that tweet. This is PundaFact. I think I think this is PolitiFact, but maybe this is like a site that's hosting it. Anyway, they labeled this half true. Now, I would even argue it's mostly false, and I'm going to explain why. When you look at their, quote, reasoning for why this is half true. The cold-blooded killing of a dozen people at the offices of Charlie Hebdo, a satirical weekly in Paris, has inflamed the debate over the ties between Islam and extremism violence. The gunman's motive is hardly in doubt. A video captured one of them shouting, Allahu Akbar, or God is great in Arabic. Liberal pundit Sally Cohn waded into the firestorm on Twitter, at one point seeing what she called repeated condemnation of Islam as a whole. Cohn wrote, since 9/11, right-wing extremists, including anti-abortion, anti-government, have killed more Americans than Islamic extremists. So the first thing that I will outright reject is the idea that if a person is anti-government, they're automatically right-wing. This is how they massage the statistics in their favor, because obviously, particularly as you've seen with groups like Antifa, they can also be anti-government and be on the left.
I thought anarchists were totally pro-government.
Right. We decided to check Cohn's numbers. Cohn tweeted linked to a CNN opinion piece that in turn was based on data gathered by the New American Foundation, a Washington think tank that promotes data-driven innovation to social and economic policy. Now, you're never going to guess who funds the New American Foundation? George Soros. By the New American count, in the time since 9/11, jihadists have killed 26 Americans on U.S. soil, while those with right-wing leanings have killed 39. The single most deadly event by Islamic extremists was the 13 people killed at Fort Hood. Now, I believe
this is before the club attack.
Right. This is before Pulse nightclub, which the number was either 39 or 49. I forget. On the right-wing side of the ledger, the worst was the 6 people slain at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin. The first thing to note is that Cohn's tweet failed to specify that the deaths took place in the United States. Cohn explained that she counted on people to use the link in the tweet to fill in that detail. The other thing to keep in mind is that many times when you see people on the left making the Islam didn't do nothing argument, they usually massage statistics and only use specifics like only in America and only if the terror attack had deaths. For example, what is not counted is when the OSU refugee, in the name of Islam, ran people over and then got out and started slashing them with a machete. No one died, therefore that's not an Islamic terror attack.
Didn't you say they also didn't even count the Boston Marathon?
Yes, the Boston Marathon bombing also was not counted. Now, I'm not sure if that was in this one.
Okay.
or if it was in another one. But yeah, that's also completely dishonest to not count the Boston Marathon bombing. We hunted around for a count of Americans, aside from military and such who were killed by terrorists while overseas and came up dry. Judgment calls. Conservatives have challenged the New American Tally. An article on Breitbart charged that the analysts wrongly attributed some of the killings to right-wing zealots when the ideological connection was weak. For example, in 2009, Joshua Cartwright shot and killed 2 police officers in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Cartwright had beaten his wife and then driven to a local shooting range. When 2 deputies found him there, he shot them, fled, and was later killed in a shootout with police. This is in no way a right-wing terror attack. That's fucking ridiculous to do that. Cartwright's ties to right-wing extremists. The sheriff said Cartwright was interested in militia groups and thought the government was conspiring against him.
Oh, wow, so a crazy person.
Yeah, wow, okay. His wife said he held anti-government views and was disturbed by the election of Barack Obama. All told, the Breitbart article questioned enough deaths to tip the count in order to reach that point. However, it needed to add in the 10 victims of John Allen Muhammad, the so-called Beltway sniper who terrorized the Washington metro area with his random shootings in 2002. Muhammad attended a mosque in Seattle, but financial setbacks and the loss of custody of his children seemed to have triggered his killing spree. Okay.
Yeah, that's up in the air.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, it gets worse. Leaving those deaths out of the equation for slayings on American soil. And the edge, however slender, still goes to the right-wing extremists. By our count, the Breitbart article came out 3 deaths short. So even at best, this is close. And Reza Aslan acted like that it wasn't even close, that right-wing extremists are being like on the cops' #1 list of dangers to America to look out for. It's bullshit. For the record, and by the way, like we said, this did not count pulse, and this is actually where they talk about it much. For the record, the analysis deals only with fatalities, even though some of the Islamic-driven violence in this country, such as the Boston Marathon bombing and Fort Hood shootings, left many with permanent life-changing injuries. Right there, I would say, makes this 100% bullshit that you would not count.
To not count Boston Marathon is absolutely absurd.
Outrageous. The only reason you would do that is if you have an agenda and you have an ideology, and the number you have to lie. So the little girl that had her legs blown off or whatever, that's what that we're not going to count that. Nice. You complain about erasure so much on the left, but you're happy to do it to children if it suits your narrative. So you can get into this whole fucking bullshit, but because now at the end of this, they're like our ruling, and here it goes. The evidence suggests that while the margin might be small, it still falls on the side of slightly more deaths due to right-wing extremists, which that's false. But the experts we talked to led us to conclude that a definitive answer is challenging. Bullshit. That's
particularly
bullshit.
After the Pulse nightclub, for him to say,
yeah,
because that was them saying that the problematic episode was May 2nd. So very up to date at this point. That is now complete bullshit.
Yeah, this at least PolitiFact here. This was written like what January 8th, 2015. The problematic episode was the other day. Outrageous that he would still propagate this complete bullshit. Now, this leads us into a further instance of, and this is something I didn't realize, there are not a lot of websites that keep track of Islamic terror attacks. In fact, this is maybe the only one. I don't know how 100% that is, but I do think this might be the only one. It's called The Religion of Peace, and of course, the biggest argument against it is it's Islamophobic and it's a hate site. Over here is the counter, that there have been 30,739 terror attacks since 9/11. So, in order to find out whether or not this site is legitimate, you have to look into their methodology of how they keep track of them. The left will never do this. They're just going to immediately label it bullshit. I purposely was looking for a site that was not the Religion of Peace because I knew that as soon as you mention the site, there people are going to go, no, that's a hate site.
I got my information from the internet. Yeah.
Right. This is the dirty internet. Now we're going to go over the methodology, and we're also going to go over what I found to be the most common arguments against it, and I find them to be preposterous. So first, we're going to go over two things here. And this site has all of the terror attacks. You can look them up. You can look at and it provides sources for the attacks that you can look for yourself. I challenge any person who claims that this site is full of shit to show me where they are lying about terror attacks. And like I said, a lot of the bullshit on the left when it comes to these statistics is about categorizing. They will categorize something or not count it for reasons as an omission of information, which is a propaganda technique. So sources for the list. So this site has the list of terror attacks. For years, the Religion of Peace has published a daily list of Islamic terror attacks with supporting detail culled from reputable news sources. For each incident, we provide enough information for any serious inquirer to verify practically any attack on our list, including date, location, and a brief description. Not many other organizations make their data as freely accessible. For example, CARE has repeatedly ignored requests for details supporting its claims of purported hate crimes against Muslims in the U.S. I wonder why that would be. Why would you want to hide that? Wouldn't you think if you had a large database of hate crimes that you would want to spread it?
Irrefutable proof of it.
Yeah, you would want to spread that shit everywhere. They offer little more than summary statistics. Not only does the Religion of Peace publish detail for each item on our counter, but we also furnish substantiating sources for individual incidents upon request. We do not cater to bulk demands beyond the last 30 days, as we do not care to give our work away for free. Keep in mind that only a single source, and by the way, there's down here you can look through all the way back to 9/11. Keep in mind that only a single source is retained for each incident, even though multiple sources are often used to construct details at the time of entry. And what you can do is you can if you find a terror attack that you think is suspicious, you look at the one source, but then go to Google and type in the search, like similar, whatever it is, whatever the date is, and you can find other sources for these terror attacks. This means that the linked article may not include all the elements of the attack, including accurate casualty figures, which is another thing that I'm going to get into, or it actually gets into at the end of the article, or the identity of the victim or perpetrators. Where these exceptions occur, missing details can be gleaned from other sources. Casualty figures often change over time as victims of Islamic terror succumb to their injuries. The retained source may or may not be updated to reflect this. On those occasions where we do decide to replace the source link, the new article may neglect other details of the attack, including in our description. If you don't like this, then feel free to do your own homework. It's very reasonable. Serious inquiries are welcome to contact our editor with requests for specific incidences. Note that in 2014, the BBC vetted the list of Islamic terror attacks for a single month and found that the Religion of Peace undercounted the number of attacks by 2/3 and the deaths by half. So this is an underreporting of Islamic terrorism. If you had an over-reporting, that would be an issue because that would mean you were exaggerating it. This is being underreported, and partly because people succumb to their injuries. You have no way to be able to kind of figure out when a person could succumb to their injury. They could succumb the next day. They could succumb in a year from now.
And their total number is still higher, with the possibility of underreporting, than what the evil alt-right indoctrinated kid had said on that show.
Right, because he said 28,000, and it's actually over 30,000. Now, about the list of attacks. The list of terrorist attacks committed by Muslims since 9/11, a rate of about 5 a day, is incomplete because not all such attacks are picked up by international news sources, even those resulting in multiple loss of life. These are not incidences of ordinary crime involving non-Muslims killing for money or vendetta. We only include incidences of deadly violence that are reasonably determined to have been committed out of religious duty as interpreted by the perpetrator. Islam needs to be a motive, but it need not be the only factor. For example, the Munich mall shooting in July 2016 was by a Muslim, but it is not on the list because it was not inspired by a sense of religious duty. We usually list only attacks resulting in loss of life with a handful of exceptions. In several cases, the deaths are undercounted because deaths from trauma caused by the Islamists may occur in later days despite best efforts of medical personnel to keep the victims alive. In 2014, the BBC did a thorough analysis of Islamic terror attacks occurring during the month of November. They found 664 attacks and 5,042 deaths. Our list had only 284 attacks and 2,515 deaths for that month, meaning we undercounted the true extent of Islamic terror by a significant margin. We usually don't include incidences related to combat, such as Iraq and Afghanistan, unless it involves particularly heinous terror attacks, such as suicide bombings or attacks on troops while they are sleeping in their barracks or providing medical care for the local population. The BBC study apparently did not differentiate. We acknowledge that a handful of incidences on our list may not fit the traditional definition of terror attack. A small portion, for example, are of honor killings. Although we usually omit those in which the woman is killed by her husband, since this is often indistinguishable from a crime of passion, barring explicit circumstances, our stance on honor killings is that the stabbing, shooting, or strangling of a woman over un-Islamic behavior constitutes Islamic terror. I would obviously agree with that because they're doing it in the name of the fucking religion, right, which is the underlying issue. Our counter reflects most of the deadly attacks on our list. This figure may be a bit more than the number of line items, since multiple incidences are sometimes grouped into the same record. Honor killings and attacks that result in no loss of life are not included in the counter, even if they appear on the list. Wow.
So they're being very conservative.
So what is this? Is this number like 100,000? Holy shit. Unfortunately, the list of Muslim terrorist attacks barely scratches the surface of atrocities committed in the name of Islam occurring worldwide each day. For that reason, we don't tally up the dead and dismembered except on a weekly and monthly basis. Some armchair critics try to minimize the problem by contrasting the number of casualties to other statistics. This is an unfair comparison since it does not account for the staggering amount of global resources devoting to containing Islamic terror, including the lives of security personnel. That so many civilians are killed despite this underscores both the threat and its uniqueness, since other religions do not merit this attention. The incidences are collected each day from public news sources. There is no rumor or word of mouth involved. Although every attempt is made to be accurate and consistent, we are not making the claim that this is a scientific product. Unlike the Council of American Islamic Relations, which publishes tally of alleged hate crimes each year without supporting data, we do provide detail of each incident that we claim as a terror attack and make it available for verification. This shit is ironclad, okay? I want you to show me where they are lying about a terror attack. You need to come up with an instance where, for some reason, a news site decided to make up a fucking story that they just... When have you ever heard of a news site just making up a terror attack and then finding that you can read about it in another publication? Like, do you understand how this is ironclad? You've got to be kidding me with this shit. Anyway, continuing. The point of this list is not to convince anyone that they are in mortal danger or Muslims are innately dangerous people. They are not, of course. Rather, it is to point out, oh, that's interesting. The hateful Islamic site has made it clear that they do not believe Muslims are innately dangerous people. They are not, of course. I would agree. Mm-hmm. It's fundamentalists that are the fucking problem. Rather, it is to point out that Islam is different. No other religion inspires the sort of terrorism that the religion of peace produces. It should be acceptable to question and critique the teachings, particularly those that are supremacist in nature. Islam is absolutely a supremacist religion when you follow it fundamentally. I wonder if you can make that argument if you follow it. No, I'm not going to.
No, it is different because Islam does say that, although so does Christianity, is to go out and propagate
that's true.
The religion. Islam is different because it's more of a manual for society building than it is strictly a code of ethics or strictly. It's more codified in terms of laws. This is how society runs. This is how you do all of these things.
Yeah, right.
To a very extreme degree, including like how to infiltrate other societies when you can't conquer them by force.
Yeah, they do, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. We also hope that this list offers moral perspectives against so-called Islamophobia and other complaints from Muslim identity groups that are petty by comparison. Who knows, perhaps one day these groups will decide to take the sort of action expected of those who truly believe that it is wrong to kill in the name of their religion. Now, I'm not going to obviously go into all the terror attacks. You can look at yourself. Now, there is this website on Loon Watch. This website Loon Watch is like a left-wing site. It used to be like when the right was truly crazy, you could go to Right Wing Watch and they would have like crazy religious people blaming like gays for the Holocaust and shit like that. So this is kind of like that version, but now things have changed. And even though this is from 2012, this site Loon Watch attempted to debunk the religion of peace. And what they do, like I said, this is what the left does, is they categorize things differently. Now, this is just amazing. What we have here is...
this was their list of them trying to debunk religion of peace by going through individual instances
Right.
and explaining why they were not attributable to Islam.
Right, exactly. So right here, for example... attack on foreign occupiers. This was from Religion of Peace. So it gives the date, where it was, and it says a Taliban disguised in police uniform murders 3 British soldiers. And then the Loon Watch says British soldiers who are part of a coalition force in Afghanistan are not civilians, therefore this attack is not one that falls under Islamic terrorism. Okay, now, that's fine. I'll even give you that one. Now let's go down the list and watch this shit. This shit is amazing. In Pakistan in 2012, a woman is murdered by her family for marrying by choice, and Loon Watch says a sad and despicable murder, but definitely not related to Islam or terrorism. The religion of Peace's attempted spin here is to conflate Islam with the so-called cultural practice of honor killing. Where are you think that they are getting it from?
Yeah, what's the culture then, if it's not Islam?
Oh, which exists in various cultures around the world.
Example. I mean, like, is this happening? Like, are tons of examples of this in other places? Like, the fact where they've had to even the religion of peace even has to say we don't include when the man kills his wife.
Right.
Just that alone, but
it was murdered by the family. And like, what, you want to go to some like far off European like woodland village where they may have honor killings in the name of like some fine. This is happening all over Islamic countries. Now, this other one, they were trying to claim that this group was not terrorists. When I looked into it, they declared loyalty to ISIS. Anyway, here's another one. A pregnant woman is beaten to death by her husband for not voting Muslim Brotherhood. A very sad story related more to patriarchy and domestic violence than Islamic terrorism.
it's always that damn patriarchy.
Oh, it's just like, are you fucking serious? And it is also should be pointed out that instances of husbands beating or forcing their wives to vote the way they want is not limited to Muslim countries. Why would, like, where, what, people were beating their wives for not voting for Trump? Are you fucking kidding me? Honor killing. 2 sisters are poisoned by their brothers on suspicion of sexual activity. Once again, a sad and despicable murder, but definitely not related to Islam.
Then what is it related to? It has to be the question. If it's not related to Islam, you're just saying this is a cultural practice. That would imply that Islam has nothing to do culturally with these people.
Which is preposterous. That's like, this is insane. Here's another one. 3 women are murdered by family members in the name of honor. Also an unbelievably sad and despicable triple murder, no doubt, but definitely not related to Islam or terrorism.
But you have to ask, where are the proofs? Where is your proof that this is not related to Islam?
Right.
Because you're just saying, no, it's not.
Right.
Because I said so.
Yeah.
I said it's not, so it's not. It's fucking retarded.
So this is what you will find. So the Religion of Peace website completely outlines their methodology, which can be checked. And the terror attacks can be checked. Now, I've not gone through all of them, but I've gone through some of them, and they are linked to news sites. And like I said, you can also take the event, type it into Google, and in a lot of cases, there will be other articles from other news sites. the only way that this site is fake is if there's a massive conspiracy from the media to report terror attacks that are happening.
Well, if you believe people like Reza Aslan,
right,
they would probably say that there is such a conspiracy because America is so Islamophobic.
I know.
Obviously, it's a giant just
worldwide conspiracy
to be make Muslims who are so peaceful and innocent out to be the bad guys. They didn't do nothing. Yeah.
Or you can do the Louise Mensch idea that it's actually Russians that are dressing up like ISIS and killing people. So that's what's happening. Another one: three women are murdered by family members in the name of honor. Oh wait, no, that's the one I just read.
Who did that one?
Let's see. That's with soldiers, blah, blah, blah. This is a good one. A young girl is beaten by her brothers and thrown off a building for the crime of being in a relationship. Another terrible honor-based crime, but the attempted spin here is to conflate Islam with so-called cultural practice of honor killing.
Well, they just keep repeating the same shit. Like, it's like, okay, are you seeing a trend here? How short-term does your memory have to be like, this is just culture, and then you have again and again and again the same behavior, but no, it has nothing to do with Islam, even though what do all of these things have in common?
Islam.
Because they're not all in Pakistan. Some of them are in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So...
This one's in Egypt. This is a classic. Several Christian students are injured by Muslims angered over their evangelism. They wrote, while certainly falling under assault and disregard for freedom of religion or expression, this has nothing to do with terrorism. Are you fucking insane? Oh my God. I just find this is amazing. And understand, there is a difference between, like, technically, well, I don't know how you would describe it. No, I would say it's an act of terrorism. I don't think it's like, I think there might be different types of terrorism, but these people were targeted for their religion and assaulted in the name of Islam. So whether it's terror attacks, honor killings, female genital mutilation, like, okay, let's say I give you the argument that it wasn't terrorism. It's still Islam. The point is Islam. So just because, and if you want to categorize honor killings as not terrorism, that's fine. But it still happened in the name of Islam, and that's the overall fucking point.
Really, when you think about it, how culturally insensitive of them to act like this is all a cultural thing while talking about a ton of different countries, to act like they're all culturally homogenous. And the shit that they do have in common, Islam, is unrelated.
Right.
That's very culturally insensitive.
So, yeah, this is that. You can look at this shit yourself. All this shit will be in the description.
And they did respond to this.
Oh, yeah, there's a long response that the Religion of Peace have on their website that you can go ahead and look at. But overall, the bottom line here is that last night was almost like a weaponized level of propaganda, acting like there is just no problem with Islam. And if you were to dare suggest that there is a problem, that you are a racist, alt-right Klan member. That's just complete and utter fucking bullshit. So, I think that's the end of this video. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and thank you, Aiden Paladin, for joining me.